Hello and welcome to this evening's edition of Beers and Bites with your co-host Chris Jordan of Fluency and Jeremy Murdershaw of Fortified 24/7. With us today is a very special guest, Ahmed Al-Samadisi. I'm going to get that right one of these days, Al-Samadisi. He is the founder and CEO of Narrator AI. And boy, do we have a lot of questions for him tonight, because he's going to talk to us all things about data warehouse and how to really extract value out of that data. So with that, as usual, Chris, let's start off with what beer you brought tonight.
I got kind of jealous of Jeremy on the last show with his. So I got the juicy IPA. Now, it's not the same as yours, is it? I mean, the food. I know it's a food ranger. It is. It has got a lot of tangerine taste to it. It is.
It's really citrus forward. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet in two ways. Yeah, it's excellent. So it's good hazy double IPA, and then I got a lemon drop from the local Three Choppers. You guys don't have Three Chop. There we go. Three Chop. So it gets its name from Thomas Jefferson. The road from that to Williamsburg, they chop two chops in the tree, or three chops in the tree, and that used to be a highway. That's how they got around. Anyways, go on, Jeremy, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
somebody knows.
I'm rocking some low-cal IPA again today. I'm back on the diet kick, trying to get bikini season ready. So we got
I'm visioning that.
I got the Golden Road, the skinny IPA, 99 calories, but it still has all the flavor that you're hoping for.
Well, I mean, if you were here in Texas with our 100+ degree heat, you'd probably be skinny dipping with that skinny IPA.
Yeah, there you go. Or I got this 105 calorie hazy pup.
Okay, you got to tell me how that is, because I'm a big hazy guy, and the low cal hazy.
It's 4%. It's only 105 calories. I can have a 6-pack, and it's like eating a hamburger at McDonald's.
It would be the only 6-pack you have all year.
I'm working on it.
All right.
I'm working on it. What you got, Al?
Well, Ahmed, what did you bring, sir?
So I was going to initially bring whiskey because I'm a big whiskey drinker, but I had like 10 calls and my throat was hurting me. So now I'm drinking a black tea that is this French vanilla T2 black tea with it has a hint of peach. So if you're into like tea, this is an incredible flavor with a side scent of peach.
Now, what he's not telling us is he's probably slipped a little whiskey into that tea. So
he's from San Antonio, Texas. You got your vodka.
Yeah, well, actually, peach schnapps is a secret trick here. Or actually, if you do ever do mint tea, I drink lots of mint tea, and my favorite is mint tea, and then I do one shot of whiskey in it, and it like makes your whole body warm. It's nice.
All right, so I brought a Stone Hazy IPA this evening.
Oh, Fear the Movie Lions.
Fear Movie Lions.
Fear the Movie Lions. Yeah, there you go. 8.5%, I guess.
It's a tiny one. You can get them in the big. You can get them in the scuba tanks.
I'm good with this size can. That's not a problem. All right. So with that, Ahmed, you've had quite a varied career, anywhere from working with self-driving cars to being a senior data engineer at WeWork and starting the data team for them. To even time at Raytheon. So as we look at the whole background that you have and how that got you to being at Narrator, tell us a little bit about that background and then a little bit more about what Narrator does and why folks should care.
Yeah, so my entire career has been about, I've been pretty much obsessed with how people think, how humans make decisions, and how we kind of do anything. So it started off with just like robotics. So in 2010, I had a full self-driving car in college, and we were competing. Actually, the first ever autonomous self-driving car crash was an MIT car and a Cornell self-driving car that crashed into each other very slowly. But and so I was really obsessed with how like a car would make decision. Eventually got into more about how robots make decisions, which continued to how like missile defense makes decisions. Like how do you like think about the most extreme case? A nuke is going to hit the US. Today's tactical algorithms to track it and discriminate and decide what to do, I wrote them. So for the US government. And then I shifted really intensely to startups, and I was like, okay, how does decisions are made in like more chaotic world? I don't know if you heard anything about WeWork, but WeWork was very chaotic. So it was a lot about decision making there. And what I realized a lot was that we've gotten really bad at decision making. We've gotten really bad at asking questions. And it's really in these startups and these companies, it's because data is really hard to use. So when you think about data, if you don't know anything about data, like if you don't know how data is actually used, it's actually an insane system. Every time I've ever described like a data system to a non-data person, they're like, that's ridiculous. It's like we have this big thing that we store all this information that has like, if you think about a table as like an Excel sheet, think about 10,000 Excel sheets. They don't relate to each other. And then every question you ask, we go in and we try to create a new Excel sheet that combines a bunch of data. And then that new Excel sheet can answer a couple of questions. And then we pile more and more and more and more sheets in the middle. And then two of your sheets don't match. And you're like, why the hell doesn't that work? And then you have to buy all these systems to try to figure out where your data is going, how it's working. And we thought, wouldn't it be better if we standardized it? Wouldn't it be better if there was just a simple standard that you can use to answer any question? And that's what we decided with Narrator. We decided with a single table, imagine one Excel sheet that's 11 columns that we proved could answer any question in the world that you could ask. And then we make that available in a very human-centric way so people can ask and answer questions. And that's what kicked off the company. And today we do end-to-end full data platform. So we realize that there's more gaps in the data platform, not just from answering questions quickly, but also interpreting the questions. How do you present it? Like dashboarding is so limited. So we dove into stories and creating more like more text-based conclusion first way of communicating data. And now it's a full end-to-end platform that we can use to help you make decisions.
So when you look at some of the technical difficulties you had to overcome, I don't know, maybe if you have two different disparate databases within your data warehouse, right? I guess the joining might be a problem or some other problem. Things like talk a few minutes about some of those things you've had to overcome there.
Yeah, so joining data, as you know, if you have multiple systems, is like nearly impossible. And one of the things that we did when we started Narrator was every company likes to start from like the perfect world. Like let's assume like your data is all connected and everything is beautiful. We assume that your data is missing data, you have gaps, you can never join tables, and it's a shit show. And what that enabled us to do was really innovate in how data relates. So we actually reinvented the concept of join using more human-like relationships that are based in time. So questions that seem very hard to do in data, like this question would probably take you 2 weeks to a month, like based on every opened email, how likely are you to order? That would take you like just to connect emails and order data. That's like a month-long process for a senior data engineer. But you can imagine if your data was all stitched together and you were able to understand a user, you could just see opened email, ordered, opened email, didn't do anything, opened another email. And you can imagine how easy it is to kind of pivot that. So we replicated that kind of way that humans think in how we stitch data to be able to enable you to transform data that way, making it really easy to prepare and answer questions. And that's kind of that single innovation. It's like one drop down in our tool was 2.5 years of like development to try to figure it out. And it used to be like an airline dashboard of 100 knobs. And then we were like distilling. And now we're in version 9 and somehow it became one drop down.
Nice. So as a final question for me, then I'll ask Chris and Jeremy to jump in, but tell me about your most favorite use case that you've been able to work with so far.
Ooh, favorite use case. So I'll go with, I'll give 2 examples, one simple, one more unique. One simple example was we worked with a big like TV brand, so one of the largest media companies, and they were trying to better understand what gets people to kind of purchase or donate money to their platform. And one of the things that they found was they have data in like their donation system, which is separate from their viewing system, from their and they have all these different services, and this company is humongous, so every service is independent. And just simply testing the hypothesis of what they thought affected donations, like they thought the type of content somebody watched, or maybe the different series, or maybe it's the platform they're using. We went through a bunch of these hypotheses that would have taken a company like a year to do. That was actually their quarterly, like a couple of these questions were each one for quarterly, and just power through them in 1 week. And what they found that was really interesting is that none of those like common things that they were operating their entire business based on mattered. And when they found out what actually mattered, like it was an incredible room where all these executives was this presentation, somebody literally printed it out and then we presented it in executive presentation. And he's like, it is super satisfying to know like that we figured out what was the biggest driver, but it was soul crushing that everyone was said, oh, that makes sense. Even though until today, no one was operating with that hypothesis. Like we were all thinking that it's a TV show or the series, and it turns out it's something very, very different. But all the executives and everyone in the room was like, yep, oh, that makes way more sense. Like we all thought this secretly and we're like, oh. So I love that use case because it shows when you present data correctly, people, it's never like, oh my God, I never thought of that. It's like, oh yeah, that's what I thought. But you can also see how a business can operate for years with a different assumption just because of how hard it is to get that data answered. So that's like, there's many other use cases in marketing and in like, I've seen it in like HR and so many interesting use cases that we've seen Narrator be used, but I'll just stop there for that one.
All right. All right, Chris, Jeremy.
Well, so, actually, Al, that's a really good question about use cases. So as you go down the list and you say, where are you created right now? You're standardized. You're starting a business. You're eating ramen noodles. I hope you like ramen noodles because that's what you probably have to eat. You're eating the ramen noodles. I mean, what's the most common use case that Narrator AI is doing right now? What do you find is your golden ticket?
For like early stage startups or
just for you guys. So like where do you find the early traction for you guys in growing your company?
Yeah, so our early traction was really, we used to call them the jaded data experts. So we looked for companies that were like
hard to find, huh?
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's such a good place to be. So they had to have a data team of 5 to 10 people. So it was like mid to larger data teams with a senior data person that has been in the data industry for over 5 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. And they have experience with more than one data engineering solution. So they've used like a Luigi and an Airflow, or an Airflow and a Cron, or a DBT and an Airflow. And the reason why we picked this very specific target to go after is that they understood the problem really well. They were so jaded because they weren't like, oh my God, Looker's going to solve all my problems. They were like, yeah, we've used this shit and it doesn't work. They're like, we've built transformations and the approach doesn't work. Like, and they come into the conversation so combative. They're like, every single time someone tells me they solved this problem, they're full of shit. I don't want to waste my time with your product. Like, what makes you different? And they're the kind of people that when we tell them we solve how data is joined, and it's not a SQL semantic layer. Early on, that was like they were the ones who were like, oh my God, okay, you get it. Let's spend time. And a lot of our early like champions were just like companies like Code Academy and Policy Genius, and these companies where they had a leader who really understood that core problem and had done it in so many times that they were like, fuck you, when we started. And what's interesting is that has shifted so far now. Nowadays, after the recession, we got the largest uptick in customer inbound. And it's just people that want to save money on the data warehouse. People who are like, hey, I have a 20-person team. And like, it used to be okay to spend a month to answer every question. And like, my warehouse cost me $30,000 a month. Like, you have blogs that tells me that you can cut my cost by 80 to 90%. Like, let's talk. And it's those people who come in with a cost saving mentality. Those are ideal. And we're beginning to see a small new segment that we're exploring where it's actually weird. It's like, I would call them real data-driven companies where like they're startups that like actually are using data since day one. Because like a lot of people like to talk about data-driven and they just throw a dashboard and they're like, look, I look at my sales, I'm data-driven. But these new companies that we're seeing are companies who create their investor deck in Narrator, their customer success information in Narrator. They're watching their customer behave as they send them emails, to their conversations with salesperson, to them using the product, to how that affects churn. Some of them are even putting their Jira tickets and they're watching a customer complaint become a Jira ticket, which is becoming a feature. And the most extreme one is they also have their like salaries of their employees in Narrator, and they're doing like cost per story point, which is like this person is solving these bugs, which are likely reducing the issue of these customers. And they solved 20 story points, and their salary that month was $7,000. So it's like $1,000 per point, affecting 6 customers. Like those newer, younger customers, they've now kind of like, you don't have to convince them to use data, and they're not about the bullshit because they don't have money to do all the shiny shit. They're like really like, so we've been like, we're doing a whole segment with one of our customers in that case, and they talk about like running their business on Narrator, and it's like that level of nuance, which I personally, when I started this company, never thought somebody would do.
You know, Jeremy, I think I'm going to quit security at this point here. And the only reason why I say that is, I mean, you know, it's enlightening because in our industry, we're doing security and we talk. Everybody writes their own crap, and you're having a person who has 4 years of an undergrad, barely knowing how to do a Python script. Let me just tell you, Python is the bane of our existence. I'm sure a guy named Satan wrote it.
Anything is free there. You can do whatever you want. It's a free.
And you know what? And you brought up Jira, and you know, one of the things that you know, Ron Gula once said, Chris, you know why I hate Nessus is because it's free and it gets me the cheapest customers in the world. And the problem is, like, when you have a customer with using Jira and some of these other tools, they're going to get over this hump about they got to buy something, right? And it's really hard for them to appreciate it. And the other thing is, you brought up a lot of neat little points. I mean, you're talking about a company that actually is trying to use data, that has a team that's trying to use data, right? And they're not trying to build it themselves, or maybe they did and they realized they got to fire somebody. I mean, what's happening in that part of the industry? Because, you know, I see a lot of teams building stuff and they don't want to give up what they built. And now you're going to come in here and say, you know what? I got 11 columns. They're saying, like, since you already F-bombed, that's bullshit. 11 columns. Yeah. I mean, name that tune. No. All right. It's impossible. So, I mean, how do you deal with it? Do you deal with that crap, or do you say, I'm moving on?
I should have bought like 10 beers for this answer. Okay. So, we always classify a set of people when we're selling are like I'm not going to change. So the problem with data is you've been sold a false good so often. You've been like tricked. You bought so many tools that you don't need. Like, I really, really struggle with this thing because I see customers being we talk about this in Narrator a lot. When you're selling as like a product, I would go up against any product or any person. Like, give me the smartest data team with their current infrastructure, and I'll set up Narrator for them. After 1 week, ask me any question, and if they can answer any question faster than me with Narrator, I will give you my entire company, and I will challenge anyone to this deal. Like, our product first product, I will hold myself pretty incredible. And people who use Narrator will tell you, if you've seen me on stage, I go to data conferences and I say, ask me any question. And I say, raise your hand if you have a hard question that's taking you more than 2 weeks. And I randomly pick someone, or have someone randomly pick someone else, and just decide on that moment to live answer questions, just to show you the power of the tool. The thing that you're fighting against in these companies is never the setup or the product. You're fighting against somebody else's marketing and somebody else's sunk cost. Those are the two things that you're fighting against always.
No,
Amplitude.
No, I was going to ask you. So you brought up MIT Cornell. Which one are you? Are you one of those? Are you MIT or Cornell?
Cornell.
Or neither? Cornell. See, my daughter goes to Cornell.
Here we go.
Yeah. So we like those Bears. Great hockey team. Good hockey team. Hope you went to a game when you were there. And so that brings up an interesting point. So because, listen, you have this entire framework that you're talking about in the back end. But one thing that Cornell has that MIT is not as good at is natural language processing. So did you do NLP when you were at Cornell, or how did you articulate? Okay, so you did look at the articulation of a human question to the data set.
Yeah. So one of the things we initially did with Narrator, we went back and forth a lot. So I built multiple natural language processors, and actually I built a lot of like AI algorithms. And what we found was the problem is not the translation of the question to the query. like even with our powerful query engine that can like do these unique joins that like are simple, the problem is two things. One is that the question that you have in your mind and the question you're asking is never. Here's an example. Here's a very common example. Everyone is like, okay, I want to know. I want to give me every single person who churned and give me what was the ticket, the last ticket they submitted. I want to know the category. And then I say 80% of people who churned submitted billing related tickets. Okay. And then somebody's like, oh my God, we have to decrease billing tickets. Sounds plausible, right? Like it sounds like it makes sense, right? Most people are submitting that. It makes sense to decrease it. That question is wrong. And what you need to do in a tool is help people ask the right question. Because the right question is, given somebody submits a billing related ticket, how likely are they to actually churn afterward? Like within a time window. So it's really hard to just give people free natural language because people ask wrong questions. So like at Narrator, here's everything we think about to get you to ask the right question. We actually try to structure your questions so you can start from like, who is everyone you want to consider? Like, what do you want to change? And they're like, okay, tickets. And we're like, okay, start with tickets, then add churn. And then we don't just show you everyone who churned. We show you everyone. And then we show you the raw data so you can see an example row of customer. And you can see this customer submitted a billing ticket and did churn. This customer submitted a ticket and did not churn. Then you right click on it to see the example journeys, and it shows you the entire history across your entire warehouse so that you get this kind of like intuition building. Oh, wait, they submitted a ticket and then they like talked to a salesperson and then they churned, while this person submitted a ticket and then didn't talk to a person. And then also like you can kind of see different storylines. Then we help you aggregate that data. And then you actually run the analysis and say, Narrator, evaluate it for me. And Narrator generates an entire story. It's like, let's understand it. First of all, guess what? If you look at it in total aggregation, it's not good. You got to look at everything over time. Has your overall churn rate actually changed in time? Because if it's changing a lot, then something else might have factored in. So we want a consistent churn rate. Then we want to see the influence of the billing type, the ticket type on that churn rate. Then we want to see if that relationship has actually been consistent in time, because otherwise it could be a fluke. Like I love doing it. I love drawing this plot where I show two lines on top of each other. And then I zoom in and I say, look, if you run an A/B test during that month, super statistically significant. But when we look at it as humans, we know it's not. It's all the stuff like that that we need to do and communicate just so that the question that was in your mind is actually answered versus the way you articulated the question.
So let me ask.
Jeremy was going to ask something. He almost said something.
Well, that's where I'm going. I'm waiting for Jeremy here.
It happens once in a while.
You guys just dominate the conversation. I can't get a word in. So who's your ideal customer? Is it what vertical is it?
So we are very, very vertical agnostic. We have customers from in e-commerce to healthcare to media to everything. We actually try to avoid being very specific because understanding behavior is our core, and you can learn from the way that any of these companies ask questions. So we have our really. Go ahead.
Have you had anybody try to give you syslog data and try to make sense of it with your system?
Yeah, so we do have we have an interesting company that is a platform as a service. Their entire thing is like server launching and some weird, insane things. All we really need you to do is the core essence that we care about is that the data is in your warehouse and it's structured. So we don't deal with like full log data unless your logs are structured, but we have that. We have customers doing that for like measuring performance and CPU utilization on systems. We have it for like flight tracking and some weird things and we're trying to measure companies. We had a biotech company that was optimizing amino acids, and they were using Narrator to understand the kind of like some protein blah 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 stuff. If you're asking up a question about something changing in time and you're trying to understand and change something, if there's an action that you could take and it's happening in time, Narrator is an incredible fit for you. And I think that most people who are trying to
if you're looking for that needle in the haystack, like most of this stuff is noise, and you're trying to find that one thing.
So Narrator is not Narrator is not designed to give you it doesn't ask questions for you. So if you have a question and you're like, does that thing matter? Or like, I want to see that thing and I want to understand the people who, if whenever that thing happens, does something else happen? Narrator is incredible. Like we had somebody once build a TV, like you launch TV ads. How do you know that? How do you tag people as TV ads? So they were looking at session data, overlaying it with like TV data. And when their ad was supposed to air, that spike, everyone who came in tagged their cookies and then see if the TV led to a higher increase of conversion than everyone else who came to the website. Like you're still trying to understand data and manipulate it. We can help you answer. We don't create questions, and we are more about you enabling the questions you already have. Like people always say, like, what matters? And it's like, that's not a question we can answer.
So not so much on the anomaly detection in the data, but understanding the data as a whole. With all the pieces.
Yeah, we have seen people use us for like an anomaly, like not really anomaly detection, but like we have a crypto company and they look for like fraud users and they look for specific behavior and patterns, and being able to like build data to represent those patterns is really hard if your pattern is across multiple systems, and you can use Narrator for that in like a crypto use case.
Interesting. All right, Chris, your turn.
Well, let me jump in because you made me think of something, Jeremy. So the ability to pull live streaming data, Ahmed, and what I'm thinking is, if a data format is structured, would you be able to go pull an API like a RESTful call and pull that data in and include that in the interrogation for answering the question?
The answer is Narrator doesn't do that. The good thing about Narrator is we're on a warehouse. So we're a warehouse native product. So we live inside your warehouse. Data never leaves your system. We only operate by issuing queries to the warehouse and keeping it there. So we try to really avoid many transactions. And we can talk about security and kind of all the things we do that's independent. We like pretty much deploy our whole stack on-prem per company. So the thing that happens there is that there's a lot of products like Fivetran that will stream your data into your warehouse. If you're using BigQuery, you can stream events into your warehouse. There's a lot of products that will stream your warehouse, like getting faster and faster. That you can literally stream it. And because Narrator is incremental, you can have Narrator run at like relatively real time. So you can do it every 5 minutes, for example, and it will operate and it can do all these things. So it's just a matter of like loading. We do not do any like in-memory stuff. Everything happens on your warehouse, which is really beneficial because we get to kind of cheat and we can support like customers that have hundreds of billions of rows and they're doing like 1 or 2 million rows a day. And we get to kind of be really great. You have over 2 million customers a day doing like all these rows, like we just process on your warehouse. So we're leveraging your warehouse for all that processing and speed and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
Do you have a specific list of products you support or you partner with or work with?
Yeah, so we support almost all the common warehouses, and we however you get data to a warehouse, we have some recommendations. The ones that we often support, like a Fivetran, and a couple other tools. But for warehouses, we support Databricks, BigQuery, Redshift, Postgres, a bunch of the big ones you do. I think we'll be supporting Hasana
Snowflake.
if you're that old. Snowflake, yeah, all those guys, we have them. And we actually support changing from one warehouse to another. We had a Codecademy switch from Redshift to Snowflake in 1 day because our entire system is written in like a warehouse agnostic. So when they swapped it swapped the Narrator, they fixed the dependencies, and then everything downstream from Narrator just spins up and works. So it's really beneficial. One thing I will say though, just kind of bring it back to the question that Chris asked earlier. When you asked me like, people are like, oh, one table to answer any question. That seems like a big claim. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to make a very big claim. But if you notice here, what always happens is similar to what happens in this conversation where people will start like investigating and they're like, what about this use case? What about this use case? And I'm like, oh, we have customers that do that. Here it is. Here is this use case. And we'll get to a point. They're like, okay, so I believe that you can answer 90% of the questions, but what about this 5%? And I'll be like, let's keep going. And it's like, okay, I believe you can answer 98% of questions, but you can't answer all of them. And I'm like, is that good enough? Like,
yeah, it's a great point.
Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
so one of the things you go through on that, I mean, because I went through the same thing and I write things down all the time, and then I say, you know what, I'm not going to ask that question because it's an outlier. It's kind of stupid to ask an outlier because, you know, if you're handling 80%, it's like C programming language. You're better than anybody else for the most part, right? So some of the stuff that I'm hearing and I'm listening to, I mean, so you go into people that are data people and they're running it. I mean, so from an algorithm point of view, are you dealing with people that are running like machine learning statistics, or are they doing things like k-nearest neighbor kind of TensorFlow kind of stuff? I mean, what do you, first of all, like, because I'm not in that industry, Jeremy's not in the industry, Alice in every industry. I mean, you wouldn't believe what cows and bulls do in the field. They're talking this crap because they have nothing else to do. So my point though is that what is the base algorithm like? Because you must see it all the time. You walk in there and these guys think they're the shit, and then you go in there and say, okay, they're using k-nearest neighbor with a deviation of 98% acceptance, and I mean. So you go in there, what's the standard that you see people just replicating over and over again? You say, oh my God, you guys are like, the Flintstones are better than you. I mean.
Yes. So so two things are funny. One thing is I think that a lot of people that claim to do machine learning and AI are like mostly full of shit. I always say this when people ask me like, why are you narrator AI? Like, we removed like AI from all our branding because I thought that the industry was so kind of markety. When you see it, when you run one of our analyses, I bet you won't be able to tell how it was done. You would say, this looks like it was written for me. Like that's often what we get. We always get, what's the catch? You people often ask us if we knew the question they were going to ask. Like we planted it. They're like, this looks like it was written for me. Like it's using proper English. It's using your data. It's interpreting. It's making decisions. It's going back and updating. It's really reclustering. And
it's like a magic trick. It's Penn Teller and Ahmed.
Literally, if you look up on LinkedIn and you say like narrated demo, you'll see people have saying this looks like magic. It's like unreal because it's not really this magic. Is that we just thought about how to communicate it, and the way that it's generated, it's leveraging some intelligence and some data. So that's what we provide. When we deal with customers, we have a lot of customers that. Oh, so go ahead.
No. That's because you're hitting to. I guess the point is that. Because I've always taught, and we think on our side of our universe, that AI for the most part is solved, right? Everybody's using the same damn algorithms, whether it's the Twitter seasonal, whether it's k-nearest neighbor, you name it. There's a set of algorithms that especially like Python users use, and they're not creating their own. So there's a limited number of algorithms everybody's using. So the secret sauce is how do you ask the question to the algorithm? How do you get the data back from the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
And and now you've got a framework, you standardized it, and you hit a pain point. You say, this is my pain point. So narrator AI's pain point, what was it that you came over and you said, oh my God, nobody's even looking at the obvious, right? This is, the obvious issue is X.
Yeah.
Whether, because like all the structure you're giving me is mostly row column. It's not nested JSON.
Don't ask him to divulge his IP, right?
Oh, well,
no, it's open.
No, but I'm not really asking you to divulge it. See, here's the issue: is everybody goes in there and they think.
Let him answer.
Well, that's what I wanted to.
It's the world's longest question. Let him answer.
No. It's a really incredible question because, like, forgetting the algorithms aside, right? If anyone thinks the algorithm is the part that's innovation, then people don't understand data. The algorithm is like fucking like it's solved, right?
Exactly.
So like that's not that things. The problem with algorithms that people don't understand is that there is like a lot of assumptions made about the data, so you can use the algorithm. So people love shoving data into like a neural network and being like, oh look, some random fun facts come out. That's trash. The problem that Narrator actually solves, the core problem that Narrator actually solves, is data preparation. The innovation that we had, the one thing that we realized was it's for all we have written our own algorithms, and we don't actually, I hate almost every single machine learning algorithm. So everything we have is custom written because I'm so stubborn. But forgetting all that stuff and forgetting everything that happens downstream, the thing that enables Narrator to work, the thing that's actually the problem that we solved is one thing only, and it's joins. That is the innovation of Narrator. That the thing that we did was we solved the fact that when you try to connect two systems without an explicit key, you run into a lot of complex queries. And if you we decided to solve the join problem and at the same time create a standard format with standard assumptions. So why is that really critical for data science? If you're doing data science, every algorithm, you need to kind of guarantee a bunch of assumptions and guarantees. Anything that happens on top of a narrator, you're using a standard schema. It's literally the same 11 columns for every company in the world. And you have a standard way that is really expressive to connect the data, kind of like a fancy pivot. So you're getting these 1 and 0s, this table that has your kind of standard 1s and 0s for your data science algorithm to train on it. But that data you would get has consistent assumptions and guarantees and is going to be reliable so you can use it. The biggest things that the companies do is they hire a data scientist, and then the data scientist writes their own 10,000 line query and does a bunch of joins with pandas, and they have this weird logic like of this weird data set, and then they train on it, and then they put it in production and nothing works. That's because there's like so many things that could go wrong in this process versus Narrator, which is just a clean data preparation solution for you to be able to do your data science.
So I hate to tell you, because like, do you ever see that Far Side where it says what a dog hears, and it says, "Hey, Alpo, ruff, 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 blah, blah, blah." So as soon as you hit explicit keys, my brain kind of turned off, because you bring up a really fascinating issue, right? Years ago, I forget the guy's name. His company got bought by IBM. It was called NORA, non-obvious relational analysis. And it had to do with the fact that when I try to join tables, there's no guarantee that people know how to spell my last name or you spell your last name or anything like that, right? That the address might be wrong. That the name, one guy called him Chris, one put Christopher, one put just C, right? And so really on this join, it's a very fascinating question you're bringing up. Statistically, are you doing anything interesting on that join? Because that's a very interesting concept.
So what you're talking about, people often solve that problem with building a taxonomy and then doing like kind of like a neural network that kind of connects things based on mappings and creates like a likely key. I don't care about that. What I like, and actually, honestly, like that is less important for most behavioral questions than more things than separate systems. So here's an example. Here's a really simple example. When we talk to you guys have podcasts, you have visitors on your website, you have people that watch the podcast, and you have, let's say, emails you send out, right? When is the best time do you guys think it is to launch a podcast? Like, you might want to know based on when you send it, based on when you send an email to people. Like, you're trying to understand, like, is it when I send the email? Is it when the person lands on our website? Do we have some customers that come in every day? If you were to try to answer this question, how would you stitch the data of anything from like your email system to your website to your podcast deployment system? That data doesn't actually connect to each other at all. There's no way to connect them. You, in your mind, as humans, we know because a person will interact with all of them, and you're like, oh, they all have the same email address. And we say, great, let's assume they all have the same email address. But in SQL, the way that you combine data, how do you join it? The problem with the query language is that it doesn't allow you to make that join. And if you were to say, okay, let's assume within an hour, what if there's multiples? You would cascade and duplicate your rows, and it would cause a cascading issue. So how do you simply take two concepts, two rows of data from the same system? Maybe one of them has two rows, one of them has one row, and put them together. That simple thing that seems so obvious, because if you're used to writing code, you say, give me the user and then give it to me with an ORM, doesn't exist in SQL. Like, that's what makes it really, really hard, is you can't simply do it you're doing it for a billion users. So you can't really do that. And that join doesn't exist. And that is where like so much code has to be set up to figure out how to do that. What we did was we solved that problem. And what we found was when you solve that problem, questions, answers, and so many things start coming out is much, much easier to deal with. You get to resolve so much issues. And we solved it in a consistent way, which allows us to standardize all of data and share analyses, share algorithms, reuse work. And it created this whole entire platform. That one thing is, this is what often happens when we try to sell to, like, people often ask us, why don't you sell to business stakeholders? I'm like, well, once you get to what we do that's different, it becomes like mumbo jumbo. It's like, but that is the key uniqueness that makes this problem really hard.
And kind of wrap it up on my side of it. So, I mean, we've gone down this rabbit hole, and it's pretty sweet tech, It really is. It's pretty neat. I mean, I've got like a case of beers that I need to go through with you. But the point here is that so you've got a very technical answer for a very simple question. And you use a lot of, I hate to say it, somebody prepped you as an entrepreneur because you use a lot of things about customer profile without saying customer profile, and you simplify. So from a business aspect, I mean, how do you take such a sweet ass technical solution and talk to dumbass marketing and salespeople and C-level people? And I'm not saying they're all dumb, but let's just say the 5% really are being overwhelmed by the other 95.
Okay. Well, the interesting thing is that those people, they live in a world where things should behave in a certain way, and they have an assumption of how everything should behave.
Right.
Those people we do really well with selling to them because that should is what we do. So when we talk to them, we actually don't talk about the tech. You don't care about how we join. What we say is, you have a question that you go ask your data team. What happens? Let's go through that. When you have a question that you need to make a decision, how do you get an answer? And they go.
No, man, I tell you this, I'm blown away that some of these C-level guys actually have data teams. Most of the people we talk to, Jeremy, they don't have data teams. You're lucky. You're talking to some companies that actually spend money because they care about the data. Most of the time, we talk to people that listen, it's syslog, and they don't understand it's data. They think it's magical and it's already pre-formatted.
So the data that we work with isn't sexy data. That's the problem with our data. It's not attractive. It doesn't make the company money. But what it is it allows us to keep the company out of the headlines with the negative press, right? That's the kind of data we work with when we catch those anomalies. But it's not sexy. You work with the sexy data.
You know, I mean, really what we're doing is we're not asking you about your company. We want you to solve our company's problems. But anyways,
make our data more sexy.
You're pretty smart on yours. I mean, so you're saying that they're traditionally the C-level people do have data teams, but these data teams are costly on the answers they give.
Not just costly. It's the two things that come out of it, and we often deal we say with stakeholders, not really executives, because usually it's like the VP of marketing or the head of e-commerce or like something like that level. And usually they have two huge problems. One, they ask a question and they have to wait like weeks, months, sometimes even quarters to get an answer. And two, we say, great, that's the problem. And then when they get the answer, they get this dashboard that has 70 numbers, and they're like, cool. And then let's say they spend an hour looking at the dashboard, and then they ask a follow-up question, and it goes into this abyss, and they're like, my next immediate question goes away. So what we end up doing with them is we say, great, what if it looked like this? What if we could do the question, answer, follow-up question in 30 minutes in a live conversation? And what if the person who's enabling you is actually a data person? So we actually then get that person and get a data person who usually looks like a star right now. So this data person sets up Narrator. It's a 45-minute session. You get it fully set up. And I say, remember those two questions you asked in the follow-up? Watch us answer it with this person's work. This person will take that question, answer it, and answer the follow-up for you and give you that beautiful analysis story. And that's the stakeholder never really gives a shit at all about how the data person did it. They're just like, wow, that data person is now a star. And we're like, all we did was give them a framework because they've been carrying all this tech debt. And that data person often is the one that people becomes this is my favorite person. They can answer questions. And then we convince a stakeholder to give this person this tool. And then as soon as that person gets it, it cascades into the entire company. And then we just kind of get more and more and more users and more people asking for more seats. So usually that's kind of how we approach it. But to that stakeholder, all the difference is instead of asking a question and waiting a month or two, I can get my answers faster. Code Academy we did a case study with them. They had an SLA with their stakeholders for 7 weeks. So every question you ask their data team guaranteed a response within 7 weeks. After they got their team trained on Narrator, they officially dropped that SLA to 1 day. And I think that's the thing that we try to bring.
Because, Code Academy is used by kids trying to get good grades that can't wait 7 weeks. I know. I got them that constantly bother Code Academy. Excellent.
That's
so, did you want to go to drinking? Like, do you want to wrap this part up and go to after hours? Because Jeremy, this one kicks ass. The juicy hazy IPA. Holy fuck! I'm drinking the lemon drop, which I used to like, and I'm like,
It's not the same.
No. I'm enjoying swill water.
Wait. We gotta find the camera here.
Yeah, there you go.
The Wolf Pup. It is a surprisingly good tasting hazy IPA for only having 105 calories.
So what's the brand on that one again? Flip it around. What's the brand on that guy?
It's Wolf Pup, and it's a Golden Road, which I think is actually. I think they're now officially owned by Budweiser. If not, I apologize.
Was that Ambev? They own fucking everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let's. I'm curious. Before we started the show, Ahmed, you were talking about how you were put into this small room with 4 white walls and a computer.
And he's still there. Look at the fucking background, man.
and bottles and bottles of whiskey, right? Good whiskey.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about your experience. I mean, we've got 15 minutes left here, but I'm curious about your experience as a startup. I've never heard of Y Combinator being a
holy shit! What
backup company? So that's
what rock did you live under? Oh my god!
Listen, I don't get into the startup stuff, but that's what Ahmed did, and that's what I want to understand his experience with that.
So you're saying Hustler does porn?
What was it like working with them? Are they good?
Yes. So we're a very unique unique company because we started Narrator and spent 2.5 years before we did Y Combinator. Usually people go in. So we went in having already raised 2 rounds, and the company was relatively a little bit larger. Long story short, when I started Narrator, we had this idea that was single table, standardized, answer any question. And getting it to work was really hard, and getting to sell a product that barely worked was even harder. So we actually burned all our cash, and the company almost died. So we went through 2 years, no customers, barely working prototype of the core technology. And in data, you talked about, now our product is very sexy and it has the whole world. It has this whole thing around it. Yeah. But early on, the core innovation was very not sexy. Very, very, very not sexy. And nobody cared. And we ran out of money. And everyone went down to minimum wage. And we were struggling. And one of the things we decided to do was okay, let's just go to Y Combinator and just it's a very big startup hub. We'll just figure it out there.
You just walk down the street, knock on the door, and go to wait. That's not exactly somebody you just open a door to. So how did you get into
I had literally, if you ask people about Y Combinator, they interviewed me, and they were like, we have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, you're some Egyptian guy who's selling me snake oil.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was they were so confused. And then they were like, wait and have another interview. And that's normally it's one interview only. And then they gave me another interview. And then they were like, okay, we still have no idea what you do. So they were like, wait. And then they told me the next day, and then they had a call with me. And then there was 6 people on the call. And they were like, okay, listen, we have no idea what you do, but somehow you have built a really powerful team to follow you. So at that time, we had an average 15 years of experience on the team. We had the VP of engineering at WeWork. We had the person who did site reliability for Warby Parker and BuzzFeed, who ran front end for BuzzFeed. We had the lead engineer, which had a very, very, very senior, very powerhouse team.
Seasoned, yeah.
And people were just very confused that these people were following me in building this company and willing to go down to minimum wage and for a product that nobody understood.
And Elon Musk picked Austin, Texas because you went there? Is that what happened?
Good Elon, my buddy.
So could you fix his self-driving car issues?
I hope so. He needs
it's the same people. It's so funny. The people who are doing the Tesla self-driving, Nissan self-driving, Mercedes, and Ford, and then SpaceX GNC, all came from the DARPA Urban Challenge. It's the same 30 people. It's if you were in this like little network, like
but
everyone's
nobody ever won the DARPA challenge, right? And nobody ever got through the desert. They all kind of died, right?
Yeah, but we finished. People finished. We finished. Like 7 companies finished. The Google car was Stanford's car that took it over. Cruise. So all these companies like ended up like the Uber car was the UPen's car. Like all these companies ended up like recycling their cars of what you know today. But anyway, it's a process.
So go back to the Y Combinator story.
Oh, Y Combinator. Sorry. So they were like, listen, we want you to come in and do it, and like we still have no idea what you do. So this is just like, and I was giving up a lot of equity for the valuation of the company to do it at that time. Like we were much senior, but I was like, the company's about to die. Might as well. Like got nothing to lose. So ended up going there with a couple of my team members, and the first month was like I would try to describe, like I thought starting a company was bad. Like that was hell, being in a white room with whiskey. The first month of Y Combinator was like torture. Every single person was like, change your idea. They're like, what you're selling, nobody wants. And nobody cares. And nobody understands it. So like build something else. You have a really good team, build something else. And I was like so stubborn. I was like, I don't care about another problem. Like I care about this one innovation that I really do think is going to change the world that no one understands. And like, it is so important to me that this is what we solve. And they're like, you're going to run out of money. I was like, Narrator can die. Like the company will die solving this one problem and we can start another company together with all these people. But this company is going to waste all the last dollar solving this one specific problem that nobody understands. And I sat down with like, after a month of like pure pain, I literally sat the entire, our 4 partners and our team. And I said, look, your job is to help us solve this problem. I don't want to hear any other ideas. And we ended up we ended up doing this really funny pivot where they were all like, okay, here's the deal. No one cares about what you do and no one understands it. So can we just sell it as like tech enabled? What if people ask you questions through Slack? You were the only person who used your product and you figured out how to answer their question because everyone wants their question answered and nobody cares about what you're building. And we did that. That's what we did. That's how Narrator started. I was just like, great, I will use our product and I'll answer questions. But what I want to show is that as one person, I can support 10 companies asking unlimited questions on Slack. So we were doing like 20 questions a day, like people bombarding. And I was showing that with our platform, I can answer all their questions. And our platform got so good in answering questions that we were like, wait, let's pause. Let's get rid of this consulting. Now we're ready to launch this platform that we now built it and shown that you can answer questions with it. And then ended up like taking off. We ended up raising our Series A, about to do our Series B, and the company kind of took off from there. But it was this huge, like 3 years of pure, like that nobody gives a fuck about this one thing that we're solving. And nowadays people are like, wow, this is great. This seems so simple. Like I love how easy it is to do it. And I'm just like,
you must have built it overnight.
Yeah. It's like no one knows. I'm like, we're 6 years in and all these, and it's also really hard because in the startup space, companies, there's a lot of hype. Like companies come out and they're like 2 years and now they're worth like $10 billion. And you're like, what do they do? And they're like, I don't know. They're just like this other company. And I'm like, what makes them special? Like innovation has kind of gotten belittled. So as an innovation first company, like it is a much harder road and we have a lot more scars, but we also get to like see customers not just like dump us whenever they love us. Like we've only had one customer churn and that was because the consultancy that was using us died. Every other, we've not had a single other churn. So it's been pretty good to see customers really be loyal and love the product and leverage it and make the most out of it and be committed to something different. And like you said, right, they have to get rid of they're used to having all this garbage system and they're moving onto something different that is a different way of thinking, a different way of interacting with data. And it's a big risk that they take on us. And I think being innovation first has enabled us to support that.
All right, I got 2 non-narrator questions for you. First
Great.
one is, tell me what you think of the claim that Lambda is sentient.
What? Oh, so I think people who think things are sentient, it's like you're so far from what it actually means to be sentient. Like people are like, oh, this like AI can talk to another AI. It's like, no, it can't. It's like the way that training works is like Okay, this is a lot too long of an answer. All right, here's a problem that most robots can't figure out. Flipping a light switch is one of the hardest problems in visual programming. If Alexa, which is about to start talking, which has like 20,000 engineers, can't understand turn off all the lights. And if you ever use Google search, you know how trashy that product, like barely can find an email when I search a title, it's like for the emails search in Google is like terrible. So when people tell me that like Amazon or Google have built a sentient device, I'm like, cool. Like if it could do that, it should be able to figure out all the lights. Like that's all I'm saying. Right. So I'm very, very skeptical in this like world. And usually it's like a lot of marketing. At WeWork, we had a company, we had a whole
Jeremy,
team.
You should have saved that one for after hours because that would be a huge discussion.
We're basically an after hours anyway.
I think we're already there.
Oh, well, I was going to switch beers. I mean, I'm drinking this swill, waiting to go back to get a nice juicy.
Well, we're basically there, Chris.
Go for it, bud.
Okay.
So what's your second question, Jeremy?
So the second question is,
I didn't hear the second one.
Why did you decide that Iron Man's plastic form wasn't good enough and make it out of rubber?
Oh, this is a great.
Well, I haven't fucking heard this. So go on.
Okay, great.
So is there like an entire like Twitter-based form? Okay.
No. So if you know, so I worked on a better version of Iron Man made out of rubber instead of out of metal or plastic. And at that time, like the military has, like I think it's public. There's a version of Iron Man that the military has. It's called Talos, and it was designed to be. The problem is this: when Iron Man walks, it consumes as much energy if it's walking down the street as if it's walking in a battlefield. So it has to detect, so if you think about Iron Man walking, it has to detect and predict every single motion and then move this ginormous heavy device that is super power consumption. And because it's so power heavy, you have to build an entire cooling system so the person inside doesn't overheat because it's this entire just ginormous moving device. So it's super power. It uses like so much power and so much guessing. Now, for what? What's the purpose of it? Well, sometimes when you need it, you get extra strength, and sometimes you have defense. When you think about an alternative is made out of rubber, is zero energy when it's not used. So rubber is elastic, which means that somebody can walk and they can move. The thing about rubber is if you have rubber, like any thick rubber, and you rotation molded with like a kind of a pressurized tank, you can actually engage rubber, kind of like inflate the balloon and causing the force to be pushed by kind of forcing the rubber. That force is actually pretty high. It's like strong enough to carry a person on one arm. Like you can actually put a lot of force in that texture of rubber. Like think about it, a car wheel, that's super high dense rubber, but like a car wheel can carry an entire load of the car by just air and rubber. So if you can pressurize air, you can actually provide a lot of force. So that's why you make Iron Man out of rubber, is because it's zero energy normal, and then only when you need it, you can actually engage it. So you can move flexibly and stretch it without having to worry about additional force. But when you do need the extra force, you can actually apply the extra force and have that be powered by a simple like liquid nitrogen tank. So because liquid nitrogen has a really high PSI.
So
yeah, but the rubber and glue model doesn't work when it comes to bullets, though, right?
No, Jeremy, you listen. So you ever seen the movie Kingpin? Where what's the guy?
Woody Harrelson.
Where's Harrelson? He's got the rubber hand. Yeah, he's got the rubber hand. He gets like Trojan backs him. I mean, it's kind of like that. It's the rubber hand.
Yeah. So, well, if you think about like the bullets coming in, so we have solved that with like very thin Kevlar, like bulletproof vests, and they're not. You don't need it. Like those things still hurt. Like people don't realize, but like if you're shooting something very strong the only reason that doesn't push Iron Man down is because it's super fucking heavy. But like it also means that your maneuverability is very slim. So you actually would rather wear Kevlar. Now the last question is, what happens when your rubber gets punctured? So it turns out if you actually line your rubber with Kevlar linings, it can self-heal. So even if it gets punctured, it can self-heal itself and then still apply force.
No, it needs to have a gel layer on it, but that's okay. This is Marvel. Marvel Universe. These are.
So we don't want to make it out of adamantium or vibranium. We need to make these weapons of the future out of rubber.
I found it's interesting. Is adamantium actually shows up in like Greek mythology, which is really, I don't know what the fuck Stan Lee was like doing, but that dude like had a big ass brain for an idiot. Right?
Yeah. He was aware of a lot of things. Like there was a lot of like nuanced science that you see that's like, okay, this is plausible. Like it's plausible.
I get to get. I'm gonna get that. Are we going on for a bit? Because I'm gonna get that juicy.
Well,
IPA.
we're at the top of the hour now. We're at the 60-minute mark.
So is it like we quit, Mark? I don't remember, Al. You're the guy that's gonna tell us what we do.
Al's got the chores to do, so he can,
He's got, you know what? He has to collect some more sperm from the bull, so he's got to help the bull out a little bit. I don't know what you're doing on the farm there, Al.
Hopefully not that, please.
Oh my
Please
God,
don't do
I had a fraternity brother who used to have to do that. So he was a veterinarian.
So Ahmed, you can tell this is already going downhill real fast.
No, listen, Ahmed.
It's all this low-calorie beer.
Or can we just go down?
Yeah.
Go off a cliff. Let's just dive into this.
All right. So I think that for the most part, I think we're concluding the conversation, but we'll have an after-hours private discussion here.
So I get my beer because I do want to talk to Ahmed. I mean, listen. I mean, I think what's special about this, Ahmed, because the more we talk, the more I realize. Yes, you have a good feeling for your technology, which is awesome. I mean, it's nice to meet somebody who actually loves their tech, but you actually have a really sweet business understanding, which is, I hate to say it, is like hidden, right? Like you don't actually show that you're actually biz savvy, but you're incredibly biz savvy. And so I really want to talk more about where that business savvy comes from. How did you learn it? Like Y Combinator, I mean, they normally teach you that shit. So the fact that you show up and you kind of school them is kind of sweet. I mean, where did you learn all this crap? I mean, it wasn't Cornell, because Cornell was 60% frats and sororities. Now, were you in one of those, or were you like a loser on the outskirts?
I love learning. And one of the things that made Cornell really special for me, like I still go back and I'm very, very involved in a lot of the Cornell programs, is they had so many different schools. So I was taking like persuasion classes, I was taking leadership classes, I was taking in like the MBA school and in their communication school, like a lot of stuff in the hotel night. Like I just took a lot of classes outside of my purview. I think that and then I got really at Raytheon, I was like, so
that was Raytheon, the Raytheon thing that Al mentioned earlier.
They butchered, yeah.
It was Raytheon. Okay, just go on.
Yeah. So I've been really, 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 really lucky in my life that people have seen some potential in me and have took me under their wings and mentored me. So I got really lucky in the president of the entire integrated defense systems of Raytheon. I had won an award. He had seen me as high potential, and then I spent a lot of time learning from him.
And you realize government contract, fuck that, I'm out of here, right?
A lot more nuance than that, but yes. When I switched to WeWork, I was very close with Adam and the entire executive team, and I got to learn a lot about how people operated and what made a business and how do you tax it, what makes things work. So I got to really privileged life to begin to formulate for myself what I wanted to create, and I had enough information to and enough people supporting me to enable me to kind of test and try and iterate. And I do read a lot, so I do love reading books. So I got a chance to also kind of copy and see what a lot of people have done. And I think combining those things, I think what you might have been saying is business savvy is just somebody who cares a lot about the survival of the company and puts information and is consuming and actually understands that. So
but you're too nice. I mean, you literally describe an ideal customer profile without really actually saying ICP. You went through what basically someone who's called the Next or the business canvas. It was everybody knows that shit, right? I mean, and you do that a lot. I mean, you talk about your tech and you presume somebody knows what you're saying. I mean, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's oh God, fuck, I got to catch up to this guy. So it's pretty sweet. I mean, so how did you wind up in Austin? First of all, you go back to Cornell, and Cornell is not exactly the best place to be in the wintertime, and that's exactly when school is. And now you're in Austin, Texas. It's a little bit hotter, a little bit flatter, right? How did you wind up in Austin? I mean, why did you pick Austin? How did you wind up there?
Yeah, so I was in New York before Austin. And when COVID hit, I decided to leave New York because everything shut down. And at that time, I had this initiative to try follow, like traveling the world. So I got rid of all my stuff and was like, I'm going to travel the world. And then that didn't work out. So I was just looking for places, honestly, looking for places that have like the stuff that I enjoy. So like, I like the Burning Man community a lot. I like kind of like people who are really passionate about things. I like to, for my personal life, kind of try to minimize tech. I do spend most of my life in tech. So I try to like shift away from tech. And Austin was a good combination where there's still tech, but there's a lot of not tech.
But don't you feel that not tech? I mean, because you brought up something really, really early on, talking about the comprehension of the question you asked, right? Which I think is that's computer science 101, right? When a person asks a question, do they really know what they're saying? And now you're in Austin, which is touchy-feely kind of lovey-dovey kind of place. I mean, you do have. Does Austin have the? They do. They don't. Don't they have the Austin City Limits music? Sweet ass, right? And so, I mean, it is known for a lot of creativity, and so here you are, hardcore tech. You're choosing Austin, and a lot of people do, and I just feel. I mean, what drove you in that direction? I mean,
so I think thinking that we're just hardcore tech is missing a couple of key things. And I think that's the separation. So I don't like.
So you're questioning me? No, just kidding.
Yeah, I think there's a really funny thing that you said, which is here's like, what is the job of narrator? Like, what is our key performance indicator? What do we try to do? Is it give you the right answer, give you the data? Like that's really, we actually say, don't do that. I don't care about the data and I don't care about giving you the right answer. What I try to do is get you to act. So I need you to take action based on my information, which is half data and half an art. Because to get you to take action, it's so much more feeling. Like I think Daniel Kahneman, there's a Thinking Fast and Slow talks about this thing. Also the Undoing Project, they talk a lot about this thing where like nobody, even statisticians, are not like, they're all touchy-feely.
So what was the name? I'm on very quickly. So you just dropped the name. What was the name you dropped?
Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, so I don't even know the dude. Man, I feel like a fucking idiot.
He revolutionized like social sciences and how we think. And he ended up winning the economics Nobel Prize.
Oh, that's bullshit. I mean, that's a freaking woke kind of award.
Thinking Fast and Slow.
If you read Thinking Fast and Slow, it's like the premise of how we make decisions, and it's a really fascinating concept. But like I can tell you right now, I can give you the answer of so many things, and you'll be like, cool, and you won't act upon it. For you to take action and actually take it, you must feel like you got it. You must be able to understand it. You must be able to communicate it to somebody else. It's not just giving you the answer. It has to give you an answer in a way where you know enough in the process that you can communicate it, and you need to be able to share that with your stakeholders and then build initiatives to act upon it. And that Jeremy, requires so much more touchy-feely than you think.
Jeremy, we're going to go over this piece here because this is our issue. This is the same issue we deal with dealing with our customers, is action.
Getting them to do something?
No, it's for them to realize the question and the fact that they want action. I mean, the first part, I don't want to say they're lazy. They're not lazy, but at the same time, they're looking for a result, and it eludes them, right? And it requires action, but they don't know what action to do, and they're confused on how to get to that action. Like at least I'm dealing with people that have
question.
They have freaking fucking people dealing with this, right? They have their answer squad of 5 to 20 people that all they do is sit around and try to answer what a CEO wants to ask.
Ahmed, you just have to jump in, buddy.
I do jump in, but I do want to say one thing that's interesting. So let's take system logs, right? You guys let's say you're detecting anomalies, right? In system logs, like credit card anomaly fraud detection.
Sure.
Something simple, right? We've seen a lot of companies we've seen this use case in Narrator. So I'll talk about like when we build, because we build a lot of analyses, what we would actually have to think about when we answer that question. So step one, find the anomaly. And I think a lot of companies say, okay, here's an anomaly. I found this weird fraud user. And then they say alert the person, and that's it. And they're like, that doesn't that, and this is what I'm saying. That's when you used to call it in school called geek for geek design. You built it for someone who actually cares about anomalies. The person in front of you probably doesn't give a shit. So what do you have to tell them? So like if this was the narrator, when we do the analysis, we say, we found an anomaly. And this anomaly we've seen happen actually 30 times. And if this was correct, you would have lost, the company has already lost $70,000 because of this problem. But not just that, because the person might not care about money. These anomalies have led to 700 tickets. So there's like community people, and like there's people that are out there in your team responding to 700 people complain about it, affecting people. Like 30% of the people who have been affected have been elderly. Like it's really getting that person to be like, oh my God, I need to solve this anomaly detection myself because my team and somebody I can imagine, like someone like me, would be affected by this situation. And now this anomaly means something more to me to get it resolved than just like a system splat out a red button. Like, and I think that's the level of stuff that I think more people think about. Like, I think thinking about just the data, like that's step one, but like really delivering value is in understanding that the person that you are giving that information to needs to act. And for them to act, they have to care. And you can't assume that anyone cares. Like you really can't. Like
that's painful.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that.
It is. I agree too, but it's very painful.
But, you know, if I'm the CISO of Marriott, I have to wonder, why did I have 20 gigs of data leak again for the second time in 2022?
You know,
what question is he not asking?
You know, if it was bad enough, he'd be fired. It's interesting though, but this is true. If it was bad enough, he would have been fired. So his job exists because that situation happens. So like in like a better value.
It's too early to say if he's going to stay or not. It just
the Marriott family's going to stay. I think they're pretty interesting dudes.
But look at that. If it is risky, like just adding that, like 80% of CIOs that have more than 2 data breaches end up like being fired. We want to make sure you don't get to that situation. Like that person now has something about them. Like it's so desensitized from like, and I think that's the stuff that you want to think about is like.
That guy's covered in food
right you now. Lied to me. I'm gonna get this other beer because you freaking lied to me.
Customer-centric selling versus product-centric selling.
I'm gonna get my other beer.
Yeah, and I mean going like you are saving them a lot of time and money, and you're saving them a lot of headache. But like they need to know that because otherwise, like you know that. Like it used to happen a lot in narrator early on. Like I would be like, "Don't you care about answering questions correctly? Like you have all these issues." And then I realized the person in front of me never cares. Like the no data person has ever been fired because they gave the wrong data. It's like, oh, data's complicated. So like I'm like convincing them you want right data, but like they don't care. Their job is not on the line. Their value, they're getting promoted. Head of data gets promoted when he grows his team. His job is not efficiency. Now in the market, notice how I told you earlier, we never used to sell money saving. Now we do because earlier nobody cared about money saving. Like every head of data wanted to grow their team. Nobody gives a shit. And you're like, I can make them faster. He's like, why? At this speed, everyone's happy and we can keep getting headcount. Like I get better and get promoted by hiring more. Why do I need people to be more efficient? Like they don't say those words because it's hard to say that out loud, but that's what they're thinking. They're like we always get that. Are you replacing my team?
Ahmed is now
however
processing from Cornell.
Hello. Sorry, I was caught leaving the gym.
I got my beer. All right. So say hi to Ahmed.
Chris has been replaced.
An entrepreneur.
Much better looking.
Yeah.
He's really struggling. You see, he's got like the white. He's in a mental institute again. I think they moved him a second time. And he's been talking about startups and stuff. So you can say hi to him.
Hello. Is today's episode entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's entrepreneurship episode. It's
data.
You're at Cornell. You're at Cornell now. You're at Cornell now. You're at Cornell.
I'm a sophomore at Cornell. I actually do research. I don't know if you do Professor Cardi, but she does a lot of NLP stuff.
Oh, no, I don't know her. I have some things.
I can't
hear Okay.
Not
So-
Cardi B.
You can talk to Ahmed.
I probably didn't bring my time. Well, if you're interested in data, I think there's a lot of actually. I don't know if you know Hadass Kretzy. She teaches autonomous mobile robots. She does crazy shit. It's amazing. Or Mark Campbell.
I haven't heard of either of them, but I'll
Okay.
start looking.
So more robotic stuff. But yeah, but if you're going to actually, if there's a course still taught, there's a class called Leadership Theory and Practice. It's one of the most fun courses in the MBA school. Highly recommend it.
I see.
Check it out.
Well,
Random tidbits of fun Cornell things.
Good job.
But yeah. See you.
Good job. It's pretty cool tech.
Pardon?
All right.
Pretty cool tech.
So here's a question for you, Ahmed. What's
Tell them next summer you're
for us
doing
here
it.
in who are traveling into the Austin area? Where is the best Egyptian food? Is it Abu Yusuf? Is it somebody else? Almara?
Don't come to Austin for Egyptian food. Keep it to
No?
barbecue.
Keep it to
Yeah,
barbecue.
Don't do it. Yeah,
So-
don't do it. It's like
Where-
shameful.
Where do you get your home cooking fix then? Do you do it
I
yourself?
fly to New York.
You fly to New York? Okay.
Like legit. That's what I do.
All right, Casey.
Uh,
Thanks for joining.
Oh, nice seeing you, Al. How's it
All right.
going?
Good. Good.
I was muted while you were talking.
Oh, you're muted. Okay, that's good.
Al knows you.
Yes, Al does know me.
Okay, I'll give you back to my dad.
All right.
I love it.
Nice meeting you. Nice
Nice
meeting
meeting you.
you.
Where'd my drink go? Oh, second empty. Okay. So, anyways, I was telling her that, B-Stocks is a great company. It's a liquidating company, but next year she can work for Narrator AI. You guys should be going good by next year. You can take an intern.
That's the plan.
Any Sand Hill Road money flowing into your company?
Sand Hill Road. What does that
What's
mean?
Sand Hill Road? Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, come on. Palo Alto VCs.
Right now, not right now, but probably very soon. We're about to do our Series B at the end of the year, so it's gonna probably aim to raise a pretty decent round. So
Nice. Hey, Ahmed, I think you guys are doing great. I texted a buddy of mine to say, hey, you should take a look at them.
awesome.
So
Yeah, excited. Thank you.
I think. Listen, I think, like I said, from a tech point, I think you understand it. I think the difficulty of technology is there's a million people who solve a problem. There's very few that can execute against it, right? And it's really hard to articulate, to engage. We struggle. I struggle myself. That's the reason why I live in the hole I do. Is I don't know how to talk. And so Al does it for me. And unfortunately, I pick a guy who also lives in a shithole. And
You guys are crazy. Looks like we're at time. So
yeah.
We are definitely.
we
at
wanted to
time.
thank you, Ahmed, for joining us today. It was
Yes.
a very circuitous route we took through our conversation, but hey, we had fun. So thank you, and
Listen,
congratulations on Narrator. It's
Yeah, most definitely. And I, walking away with that one salient point that you have to find somebody who cares and somebody who cares enough to take action. And I think that's very, very important.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. I really, really loved it, and this was so much fun.
Yeah, hey,
Okay.
Ahmed, if you ever become unemployed, I'll hire you. You're an amazing person. I just can't afford. I don't think many people can afford an Ahmed. I will tell you the truth. You're excellent. And like I said, I mean, you're a utility player where you talk the tech very well. You're business savvy. I mean, I'm very interested in understand why you struggled with Y Combinator. You seem very articulate in understanding business for a techie guy. And I'm very fascinated to find out where you came from. Anyways, I heard the music going. Nate's like, fuck you, Chris. You don't hear it on our side. But for that. He has like,
off the stage.
There you go.
all right.
All right, listen.
Thank you.
And Ahmed, listen, I'm just 2 hours away. If you ever want to connect up, just drop me a line.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you like to
I'd love
kill
that.
helpless animals, he'll give you
All
a
right.
gun.
All right.
Awesome.
We'll see you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Are we done?
We're done.
Good done.